So again, the quickest unit in the entire class. There's not a lot they can ask you on a test from this section. And quite honestly, there's not a lot in this section that's up for debate or really discussion. This is about applying the rules. And the rules about determining living area or square footage or heated living area all mean the same thing, are pretty dang straightforward. This is not going to be something where you have, a lot of like, oh, I'm not sure. Is that what he means? This is all pretty straightforward stuff. And so the challenge for you here is to just take the rules, accept the rules, and don't add to the rules. North Carolina actually has pretty limited rules when it comes to establishing square footage. Now, let me be clear. We mean interior square footage. I guess I should add that word here, interior, or living area of a home. And notice I said home. Look at what this is called. What kind of guidelines are these?
Residential.
These are residential square footage guidelines. The state of North Carolina does not have guidelines at all for determining square footage in commercial properties. We only have guidelines or rules for determining the square footage of residential properties. And these come straight from the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. One of the first things the Real Estate Commission wants to make sure you are able to understand is some basic terminology. The phrases above grade space and below grade space have traditionally caused some confusion for new licensees. Somehow it got into people's mind that below grade space meant like crappy space or, less developed or less desirable. That is not true. That is not the meaning of the phrasing. Grade simply means ground level, folks. Grade is the level of the dirt. Above grade means above ground. Below grade means below ground. Any space in North Carolina. So like if you were to go into like, for example, a split level home. Any of you ever been into a split level home? You go in the front door and you go down to like one level, then the living room is down there, like half the living room is sort of below ground level. It's got windows, but they're way up on the wall and it's, kind of sort of below. That's below grade space because the floor is
pretty much have in Maryland.
Because the floor is actually below ground. Does that make sense for everybody? If the floor is below ground level, that's below grade space. If the floor of the room is above ground level, it is what?
Above grade.
It is above grade. It is above grade. They both count as living area in North Carolina, provided they meet our guidelines. We count. So would a finished basement, assuming it meets all of the requirements of living area, would we count a finished basement as living area in North Carolina?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. It's below grade living area, but it's still living area. It counts in the total. Okay? So below grade or above grade literally just means below ground or above ground. In the state of North Carolina, living area or square footage is not a material fact. I'm going to say that again. And now you need to start connecting the dots here. It's not a material fact. Folks, what do we owe to customers?
Honesty.
Material facts.
Oh, honesty.
Honesty, fairness, and what? Material facts.
Disclosure of material.
So do we owe customers the square footage of a property?
No.
No.
Yes.
Is that why they don't
Yes.
come below and stuff like
No.
that?
I'm going to say it again because some of you are answering from what your gut, and that is indigestion. Answer from your head. It is not a material fact. We only owe customers
Material fact.
material facts. So do we owe customers the square footage of a property?
No.
No.
We do not. We are not obligated to give a customer square footage of a property. But just like anything else, can we, if we get permission from our client, choose to disclose things that are not material facts?
Yes.
Yes. And is this likely going to be one of the ones that our clients will want us to disclose?
Yes.
Absolutely. Most of the time, if we're hired by a seller, even though we're not obligated, now we're obligated to tell the seller what the square footage is, because we tell our clients what? Everything. But we're not obligated as a listing broker to tell buyers what that square footage is, because those buyers are our customers. But do you think our seller client's going to be like, yeah, go ahead and tell them what the square footage is? What do you think?
Yes.
And the reason is that most buyers shop based on square footage. How many of you think it would be really weird to go look at a listing on the MLS and square footage it says NA, not applicable? How many of you think that would be odd?
That would be.
Right? And as a buyer, it would probably be off-putting. It'd be entirely legal, but it might not be a good marketing choice, which is why most sellers do want us to include square footage. Here's what you need.
Part about this section is that there is a guideline from the Real Estate Commission, which I have put in your Google Drive, and also you guys are going to be assigned to measure a home over the weekend. So
You're lying.
No.
You're lying. We're not going to make
I'm
them
lying on the
measure.
second part, but the booklet I'm not.
The booklet is
That's the
going
part I was
to.
excited about.
Well, you do that. You can do it if you want to, and you will do it in post licensing. Look at this one though. Just because it's not a material fact, can we just make up a number and do whatever we want to do?
No.
No. If we choose to disclose it, we have to be what?
Accurate.
Have to be accurate. So if you're going to choose to put square footage on your listing, you better be accurate with that square footage. And that's where we get into our requirements. It's sort of like the requirements for discovering material facts. We're going to be held responsible for the number. Does that mean we have to measure it ourselves? Not necessarily. We could hire a professional to do it for us, but we're going to be held responsible for the number one way or the other. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
So either measure it yourself, or if you don't trust yourself or you don't have time, hire a professional to measure it for you. I've had people say, can I get my Uncle Billy Bob to measure it? Sure, as long as you want to put your license in Uncle Billy Bob's hands.
Right.
Because you're going to be held responsible for his measurements, ultimately. Okay? Here's what I would absolutely say you'll see on a test. We are not allowed to use old records rather than measuring. If you're going to use square footage and you're going to disclose square footage, the property must be what right now?
Measured.
Must be measured. I don't care if they have an appraisal that was done 6 months ago. Can you use it?
No.
No. Now, you might use it as like a guideline and just go verify the measurements on there and use the pretty drawing from the appraisal. That's different. But you still have to measure to verify. Okay? It must be measured for the purposes of putting it on the market if you're going to disclose square footage. Now, when we measure, first thing that throws people for a little bit of a loop here is this statement right here. Even though we are measuring for interior square footage, living area, where should our measurements take place according to the rules?
The exterior.
The exterior.
On the exterior.
Yes.
Folks, we know this is not accurate. We recognize this is not accurate. This is done for consistency purposes. Because when you try to measure a home on the interior, think about what gets in the way. Furniture, walls, closets, dead space that you don't know is there. And plus you have to measure one room, write that down. Go measure the next room, write that down. Figure out how thick the wall was, write that down. Wouldn't it be very likely that you would make mistakes when you were doing all that different measuring on the inside?
Yes.
Yes.
So, to avoid all that, we simply tell licensees, measure it where, folks?
The
On the
exterior.
exterior.
On the exterior. Measure it on the exterior, where you can easily get a length and a width for the property. And then you just multiply by the number of floors in the property. That's going to be your starting point. That's not going to be your final square footage, but that's going to be your starting point. So like in this one in the drawing over here, it's 40 by 30. So 40 by 30, that's 1,200 square feet. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
And it's 2 floors. What are we going to do?
Times by 2.
Multiply by 2, right? That's a total of 2,400 square feet. That's not our final number, but it's our starting point. Here's what I want you to understand about that, and this is the beauty of measuring on the outside. It's 2,400 square feet max. Are we looking for space to add at this point, or are we looking for space to take away?
Take away.
Take away. Because by measuring on the outside and multiplying by 2, and this is why people get themselves so tangled up. Well, I don't measure the garage, do I? Yes. Is that not on the damn outside? You measure it all. Because what you're trying to give yourself is a starting point. And the starting point should be the maximum possible square footage. And then we're going to go inside and look for things that need to be what? Subtracted, taken away. Yes, we're going to subtract the garage. But when we go inside and we know for sure that it is a what?
Garage.
It's a garage. Because the thing of it is, it might not be a garage. What if we get in there and it's actually a finished room? Right? You can't tell that from the outside, but you can certainly tell it once you get inside. So when you include it, when you're measuring from the outside, you know it's already in there. I'm only going to deal with it if I need to do what with it?
Subtract.
Subtract it out. Does that mindset make sense for everybody now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay? And that's why we want us to take exterior measurements. So first rule, take exterior measurements. Now, this rule, condos, you will understand later. Condos only include airspace. So in condos, that's the one exception. You measure them inside. A condominium unit, you just measure inside. Because condos only include airspace. You can't really measure the exterior of most condos anyway, because they're like blocks in a big building. But you would just do airspace. But for the vast majority of residential properties, you're going to do exterior measurements, including townhomes, including single-family homes. When you go inside, now, when you go inside, are we looking for things to add to that square footage number that you just got from the outside, or are we looking for things to take away?
Take away.
We're looking for things to take away. You are going to make 3 trips through that house on the inside. And any space you come to that does not meet one of these criteria, you're going to take it away. Trip number 1. What does it say you're looking for on trip number 1 through the property?
Permanently installed heat source.
Does the space have a permanently installed heat source? That means you walk through every room in that property. By the way, isn't this probably going to be the first where you eliminate the garage right away? Because most garages are not going to have a what? A permanently installed heat source. They're not going to have permanently installed heat, so there you go. If you go out to the garage, you don't see heat, measure it, and do what with that number?
Subtract it from the
Subtract it from the total. Are you going to bother to walk through the garage anymore, or are you done with it now that you know it's not living area?
Finish that.
I'm done.
I'm done. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
I can only take it away one time. It doesn't matter if it doesn't meet the other criteria. I've already taken it away. I've already eliminated. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
How about if you go out to the sun porch and there's no heat on the sun porch?
Not included.
Take it away. Take it away. Now, a permanently installed heat source means anything that's attached to the property. That could be a furnace, that could be a fireplace, that could be a radiator that's mounted to the wall. What it does not include are these things.
Right.
If this is the only heat in a space, then that space is not permanently heated. And it needs to be subtracted. So are we all good on trip number 1 through the house?
Yes.
Did the square footage get bigger or smaller based on what we measured outside?
Smaller.
It got smaller. Are we done?
No.
No. What are we going to do?
Step 2.
Second trip.
Step 2, walk through the entire house again, right? Now, we're not going to walk through any spaces we've already eliminated, but the spaces that we still have on our list, we're going to walk through, correct?
Yes,
Correct.
What are we looking for in trip 2 through the house?
ceiling height.
Issues in maximum.
Ceiling height and finished. Is the space finished with interior finishes? And does it have a minimum ceiling height? Are there going to be some, even if somebody had heat in their garage, is this probably going to be in the one that eliminates the garage right here, the interior finishes part?
Yes.
Yes.
We understand that modernism is now incorporating industrialism. So that is usually a case by case basis, but like concrete floors and stuff, now they're starting to become interior finishes. But if you
Right.
think about
That's a
garage
very
door,
debatable gray area. You know, that's the kind of
be
thing you'll
tested
have to
on.
make a judgment call on, but you certainly won't be tested on it.
So regular.
But you
interior
will
finishes.
be tested on the ceiling height. What is the minimum acceptable ceiling height in the state of North Carolina to consider that space as living area?
7, 8, 5.
7 feet. Everybody good with me on that?
7 feet standard.
7 feet. Unless
Slope ceiling.
that room has a sloped ceiling like the one in this picture. Or if we want to get really real, why don't we do this right here? Hello, Stephen.
Yeah, exactly.
I want you all to look at that ceiling behind Stephen right there. That is what we mean by a sloped ceiling. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's perfect.
When you look at a sloped ceiling, the minimum ceiling height drops to 5 feet under the slope. The flat part of the ceiling has to be at least how tall still?
7 feet.
7 feet. But the sloped part has to be at least 5 feet. Now, looking at that slope behind Stephen right there, I'm pretty sure that slope drops to less than 5 feet on that wall, that wall back there. Now, I'd say that's probably closer to 4 feet if I had to imagine, Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's what I want y'all to understand. We're not going to eliminate that entire room he's in. We're only going to eliminate the part of the room that doesn't have the minimum ceiling height. Does that make sense for everybody?
It's almost like an invisible square.
Right. So we're basically going to take away stuff on his right, our left. Where the ceiling height is less than 5 feet. So, maybe about where that pointy corner is above his head there, somewhere ish, is going to go away. That space goes away because it's not tall enough. Does that make sense for everybody? And thank you, Stephen, for being the guinea pig. I think that's super helpful.
Thank you.
Used to it.
Yeah. Okay. I think that is super helpful to see it in real life. So under flat ceilings need a ceiling height of what? 7 feet, and slope ceilings minimum of what? 5 feet. Very good. Subtract anything that doesn't measure up. Danielle, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I didn't understand what you said about, so everything like this picture, where the slope begins, we're just going to cut it off and deduct it.
Not where the slope begins, where the slope gets to be less than 5 feet. So remember this. So let's say this is 10 feet right here, right? And then it gets to be 9 feet and 8 feet and 7 feet and 6 feet. And right here is where it gets to be 5 feet. You following me so far, Danielle?
Yes.
Where it gets to be 5 feet, you're going to put an imaginary line across the ceiling right there, and all of that goes away. You're going to measure this square footage in the room right here and subtract it. You got it now?
If it's less than
under
5.
5.
Because the height in that part of the room is not tall enough.
Right.
Everybody okay with that? So we're still keeping, 90% of this room, but we lose some square footage on the outside edge of it. Okay? So that's how we handle slope ceilings. Again, that's our second trip through the property. Are we done, or do we still have one more thing we have to do?
One more.
One more trip through the property. Now remember, anything we've already eliminated, no need to walk through that again because it's already gone. But whatever space you have left over, you want to walk through it, and you're looking for one very important thing. Is it all now? Because remember, now you've subtracted some things, right? Is it all now still directly connected? Or do you have to walk through those areas that you just deleted to get from one place to the other? If you have to walk through those deleted areas, you can't count space on one side or the other. You can't count both of them. You got to pick a side. And so it's really important to make sure it's still all connected as you walk through. So I'm going to show you some pictures of some space, and let's talk about it. So look at the top left picture there. Let's say that is a beautifully finished room up there. Is it going to count as living area in the total of that structure? No, because you have to go where to get there, folks?
Outside.
Outside. You're not in a finished area to access it.
Right.
And so basically, the minute you have to walk out of this door, it doesn't matter what's up here because we're going to pretend it does not exist for living area purposes. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
How about this finished basement down here? Now, here's your house. You got the house up here. We're clearly going to count all that as living area, but are we going to count this space?
No.
No, because you have to go where again to get there?
Outside.
Outside. How about this one? You got a nice little guest house here. What is the square footage of that guest house, folks?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Zero.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because the square footage is all in the main house over here. The minute you have to walk out the door, you're no longer in a finished area, and it doesn't matter what you get to. It doesn't count. Does that make sense now? Okay. Look at this one. This last one, you don't even have to go outside. Here's one where you come out of the main house, you go into the garage, and then they have stairs from the garage up to a really nice bonus room. The bonus room has got a bathroom, finished, heated, air conditioning, super nice. What's the square footage of that bonus room that's up there? Zero. And the reason is because you had to go through space that you've already done what with based on the other rules.
Eliminated.
You've already eliminated it. Now, is it possible? Let's focus on that one on the bottom right. Is it possible to make that space upstairs into living area without touching the space upstairs?
Yes.
Yes.
If the space upstairs is already finished, what do we need to do to make the space upstairs living area?
Finish it.
Finish it too.
Make this space living area. If we make that space living area, doesn't everything connected to it also become living area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we mean, folks. That's what we mean about directly connected. Shirley? You muted.
I just asked you to unmute, Shirley, if you have a question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The question is that basement. If you can access the basement through stairs that are off the kitchen.
Then it would count. Then it would count. I'm assuming this is the only door when in the picture I'm showing you.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But if there's an interior stairway where you can access it without going to an unfinished area, then absolutely it counts. Absolutely it counts.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
If it's, and I probably have the answer, but I just want to make sure I have the answer. If it's a finished room over a garage that was not counted, as long as there's access to the finished room from the upstairs,
Then that counts. That's connected. That's exactly right. We're not saying that every potential access to it has to be finished. We're saying it has to have some finished access to it.
got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In other words, if you ever got to put your shoes and your house coat on to get to the damn space, it ain't living area. If you can get to the space buck naked and you ain't scared the neighbors, you're probably all right. You're all right. You know, Alexa.
Okay, so I think I know the answer already, but a screened-in porch that has a gas fireplace. If I put windows all through it, can I count that?
Is it directly accessible from
It's attached to the house.
to the main living area of the house?
Yeah, there's
Then I
just a door, but
then-
yeah.
Now, you said a screened-in porch and you're going to put windows in it. What's the flooring?
Concrete.
That's debatable. You know, decking boards, I would say no. But especially if you put tile on the floor, you know, it would and added permanent heat, then yes, it meets the criteria.
Okay.
Yeah. All you got to do is make it meet this criteria.
Yep.
All you got to do is make it meet this criteria. And if you've made all 3 trips through the property and it meets all 3 criteria, there's your final square footage. Does that make sense for everybody? Now, here's what I got to caution you against. Don't add to this criteria. This is the criteria. You don't get to make the rules. What if you're measuring a house and it's clear that the owners did a half-ass HGTV special on the attic? You've measured the main house. The original house is 2,500 square feet. The attic is another 500 square feet. It's clear that the owners did it themselves. It's clear they didn't get permits. Okay? But it's finished. It's heated. Minimum ceiling height. All that. What square footage do you market the property? 2,500 square feet or 3,000?
2,500.
2,500.
Why? Why would you market it at 2,500? Those you just
Wasn't
said.
permitted.
I don't give a shit. That's not on the list.
It met all
it's-
three criteria.
Yeah, it works.
That's why I had to do it to you.
She said, yeah, it works.
It's not on the list. And that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do in this class so often. Those gut answers will get you every time. Why do I like to catch you in that? Because I'm hoping you'll stop doing it, right?
Right.
Permitted-
Yes, it met criteria.
Right. Permitted's not on the list. We're not saying that might not be a problem. We're not saying that might not be a material fact, but it's not part of the criteria. Does
Where
that make
put
sense
it.
for everybody?
Absolutely.
You know?
Doesn't matter if it's a shitty job, but as long as it's technically livable.
That's it. It doesn't even have to be livable. I've seen some space that ain't livable. I've been in some, I've been in some basements. I've been in some basements that I wouldn't even listen. Like Silence of the Lambs would have been an improvement. I mean, like I'm talking drop ceilings from 1972 and that wood grain paneling on the wall, and the only heat down there is a 75-year-old propane heater that's attached to the wall with 2 nails and a prayer. Is that living area in the state of North Carolina?
It is.
It is. It meets the criteria, folks. It meets the criteria. Okay.
So
So don't add additional criteria.
are we at the end, Travis?
We are.
Of your
We are.
slides? Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to share something really quick because I think it's really good to kind of hit home for that.
And while you get that, I'm just going to mention this last slide. Don't worry about things like stairs. Stairs count on both floors because they meet the criteria. You know, if the stairs are finished, if the stairs are heated, if the stairs meet the minimum ceiling height, then they count. You don't have to worry about them. And that's it. That's all.
Yay.